Welcome back inside Studio West. We were just here with Anita Marks, and playing the role of Anita Marks apparently on Twitter is our good friend from Unabated, Captain Jack. How are you, sir?
Hey, Dan, good to be here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. We'll do some live betting.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to be leveraging the tools available to you at Unabated and the great MLB slate we have this afternoon. I think 5 or 6 baseball games going on right now. I've got in studio here the Brewers and the Detroit Tigers. It's 5-2 in the top of the 7th, but there's a bunch of games going on right now. I know, Jack, you want to focus primarily on South Jersey's finest, Zach Gallen, towing the rubber for Arizona this afternoon.
Yeah, this one shapes up. I actually already have a position on the under in this game at Sport Trade, the under 8.5 minus 117. Which on the unabated odds screen shows up as a 1.2% edge currently. But here's why I liked it. A couple factors here. First of all, Yarborough, which is who's starting for Kansas City, he's not quite as bad as the stats dictate. The guy is past his prime. He was DFA'd from Tampa Bay. He's the long reliever. He's doing a spot start here for Kansas City, but he's not quite as bad as those stats dictate. Meanwhile, Zach Gallen's proven the guy's been crushing it all year. He's got something like he hasn't given up a run since April 4th or something. So he's solid. And the X factor here is the roof is closed in Arizona today. They pump that air conditioning pretty strong. And actually, even when the roof's open sometimes, the under's a stronger play just because of how strong the AC is in that stadium. But yeah, I really like the under here. We're going to see how the game starts to play out and see if we need to get out of the position, double down in the position. Maybe one side or the other is going to step up as a stronger option. This batting lineup for both teams is not nearly a murderer's row. It's actually pretty mediocre today. So, yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Diamondbacks 13-12 on the season. I got to say, like, not really exceeding expectation. I think they were sort of a dark horse of sorts, and they came out of the gate really strong. They've had a tough stretch of late. We'll do a quick little roundabout of the games going on right now before we get into that one, Jack. We've got a couple games going on. The Baltimore Orioles right now are at 99-5. To beat the Red Sox, they're up 62 here at the end of the 8th inning. But you can see the little red dot here on Sport Trade. That's because we have finally game state data in the app. And I got to tell you, sucker's fast. All right. This thing is keeping you up to date, literally maybe seconds behind what's going on in real life. It's been an amazing addition to the app. You no longer have to leave the app ever again. And I want to do something special before we really dive in here, Jack. Yesterday, we announced that we are launching a campaign, a hashtag as well, called Bettors Unlimited. Obviously, what goes on in the industry, if you've watched the programming with us, if you're familiar with Jack and his content at Undebated, you know one of the tactics sportsbooks use to stop people from beating them, or put a different way, to stop people who are good at sports betting from making money is to limit them. Jack, I'm sure you've been limited a time or two in your life.
A few times.
A few times. So we are launching a new program for new users in New Jersey called Bettors Unlimited. If you send us a picture of you being limited at another book and you sign up with a secret promo code, the secret promo code is UNLIMIT. It's a secret. Don't tell anybody. The secret promo code is UNLIMIT. If you sign up for Sports Trade with that secret double-blind promo code, we will give you 7 days commission-free betting. All right? So tweet at us and use hashtag Bettors Unlimited. Send that picture, and we'll make sure we hook you up.
Yeah, that's a great promotion, Dan, because that is the big strength of Sport Trade is the low commission, and so to even take that away, man, it's that's a great deal. I wish I could have negotiated that deal for myself, because that is super strong. It makes every bet, especially if you're using like an odds screen like Unabated, it makes every bet to be, positive EV. You don't even have to worry about including commissions into the odds screen.
So I am, as you're speaking right now, if you're all on Twitter, I am presenting you, Jack, with an honorary badge, welcoming you into Bettors Unlimited.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm sure that's really all you've ever wanted.
Wait, do I get the commission free?
Well, check that off with Alex. I don't know about that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Right. Well, that's way above my pay grade. I just talk. All right, let's dive back into the slate here. We have wasted enough time. Again, a bunch of live games going right now. Toronto's up 8-0. That game is off the board. Cleveland up 4-1 here in the top of the ninth. They're trading at 98-7. The Yankees are up 12-6 in the bottom of the ninth. So a couple duds here, but we do have the Tigers and the Brewers, as I mentioned, 5-2 here, top of the seventh. Runner on third, fly ball to right is caught, and I believe that'll end the inning. So end of a threat there for the Tigers. Hey, if footies are fancy, Brighton and Nottingham Forest is on. A couple EPL games are on, actually. So we're just kind of waiting for 3:40 for the Arizona Diamondbacks to start.
Well, tell you what, let me talk a little bit about strategy for a game like Detroit-Milwaukee, where you're heading into the bottom of the seventh. This is the point where the team that's trailing might start to shake things up, put in some pinch hitters if the end of the lineup is going to be batting. So this is one of those situations where as we head into the top of the eighth after this next half inning, you might want to look at the lineup to see who's coming up to bat, and don't assume that those batters are going to actually bat. If you look at who the pitcher is or is going to be in that half inning, if there's a righty-lefty matchup to be made by pinch hitting, you can look at that. If there's a strong pinch hitter on the Detroit bench that's maybe getting a day rest, which is very popular on a Wednesday game.
True.
They might be coming up to bat. So you can kind of take that into consideration, and it could be a spot to bet on the dog in a position where maybe they'll get a couple of people on base, and then you trade out of it, before the end of the game, just based on the performance in that half inning. So there's always something to kind of look forward to in the next half inning, knowing who's coming up to bat, who's pitching, how many pitches they've thrown, how close we are to any kind of substitution is something you can definitely get ahead, because the market isn't going to take those things into consideration. You can't assume that there's some guy in a booth somewhere like studying this game and moving the line. No, the market is basically algorithmic at this point in the game. So you can kind of overcome the algorithm sometimes that way.
So the Tigers have 4, 5, and 6 coming up. They are a combined 5 for 9 with a home run and 5 RBI. So obviously against different pitcher, right?
Right.
Brewers have gone to the bullpen, but I'm actually going to go and buy. Why not? We'll throw 2 shares, $10 at plus 1862. See if the Tigers can get anything going here. I'm in on that one. While we do have some downtime, I do want to ask you a few questions. I mean, this is as much of a learning experience for me as I hope it is for our audience, Jack. It's pretty early in the season, right? New rules have been implemented. A lot of pitchers have discussed openly about how the pitch clock is frustrating them, speeding them up, etc. Have you seen personally any betting advantages that perhaps the books are not paying attention to, maybe even in the totals markets where we've seen about one extra run scored per game as opposed to last year?
I think the rule that has had the biggest impact is the throw over to first limitation rule. That's the one that I think flew under the radar a little bit, and that's probably frustrating pitchers more than the pitch clock
Hmm.
because it's limiting how effectively they can keep somebody moving from first to second. And, first to second is a huge jump in run probability, especially if there's 0 outs in the inning. So I think that's led to the increased scoring. Will it
Hmm.
continue? It's hard to say, but it feels like a paradigm shift. It feels like this is the new normal. And I don't know if baseball will modify rules again to kind of dial it back a little. I think the pitchers could probably use like 3 or 4 extra seconds than what they're getting now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it definitely feels like this surge in scoring is not coincidental.
Hmm.
It's definitely related to some of these rule changes.
When you're going through markets, and I don't know how often you're betting totals. I can tell a great story about the first time you ever told me about price shopping, which we can get into a little later. Are you noticing an uptick in totals specific to the markets, or do you think books have been slow to potentially react to that?
The books were very quick to react,
Hmm.
actually.
Okay.
We started seeing it in about the second week of the season. Totals were definitely creeping up higher right away. And I think because everyone kind of picked up on it right away.
Hmm.
It was something that was in plain sight for everyone to see.
Yeah. Heavily
And
reported on too, so it makes sense.
right, right. And so the big to do preseason was the stolen base rate with the bigger bags. And I know a lot of bettors were trying to take advantage of stolen base props as the season began. I don't think there was as much value there as they thought. The the clear change was in the pitchers and both the clock and the throwover rules, and that's made the biggest difference.
Again, we're kind of biding our time here until there's more baseball. We are live betting here. The Brewers and the Tigers, 5-2, bottom 7, 1 out for the visiting Detroit Tigers. Excuse me, for the Brewers, who are up right now. So we had purchased 2 shares of the Tigers, but quick inning hasn't really panned out for us. But that's okay. It was only $10. Jack, I am curious about this. Obviously, you'd identify yourself as a sharp bettor, you're a professional bettor. So much of the conversation now that we think and we hope that a lot of the betting public is becoming more educated in the matter is plus EV. Would you describe yourself as a plus EV bettor?
Yes, I mean EV drives everything I do, whether it's
Mhm.
sports betting or casino advantage play or life
Oh,
advantage
I thought you were
play.
gonna say like walking the dog or something like that. Plus EV
Well, yeah,
walks and
there are
everything. Yeah.
certain things that are negative EV that you just have to do. But for the most part, no, it really drives you. And
Mm,
once you kind of get into that mindset that almost like it's a life you live, then it sort of dictates everything you do. So for me, it's really tough for me to make a sports bet that I don't have an edge at.
mm.
It just doesn't feel good. It's I can't watch a game and say, "Oh, I'm going to put $50 on the Phillies here just for entertainment uh, value." No, it doesn't. It's not entertaining to me. But if I have an edge, and even if I have an edge betting against the Phillies, and even a Phillies fan, as are you, and if we go to a game and the edge is on the opponent, I'm going to have to bet that. And then if I lose the bet, I'm not unhappy because the Phillies will have won. So
Yeah.
as long as it's not a situation where I bet against the Phillies fail to win, but my bet fails to cover, and that's a lose-lose.
So I guess I ask because as this becomes more into the public conscious, right? I mean, there are entire Twitter groups associated with finding plus EV bets and everything like that. The dissenters would say it's great to find a market edge, but the bet still has to win, right? So if you find a bet that is just a complete fabricated example. Let's say you find a bet that's plus 250 somewhere on something that is like almost implausible. We'll say like Jokic to score less than 10 points or something like that. And it's plus 250, but everyone else in the market has it at plus 180. The dissenters would say, well, great, you found an edge, but let's be honest, that bet's never going to hit. What would you, how do you respond to something like that?
So yeah, I mean, in that situation, those odds would be much bigger. But
Yeah. Again,
I'm gonna play
completely
along.
hypothetical. Yeah, sure.
It's not about the short term. It's not about today. It's about the long term. And yeah, a lot of times I do not manifest the EV. And in those cases, I bank it. It's banked for later. Someday down the line, I will manifest over my expected value. In other words, like the, 8-to-1 shot that I'm getting 10-to-1 odds on will actually hit, and I'll clean up. You've seen enough in sports that the improbable happens, right? Look at the Atlanta-Boston game last night. Atlanta had no business coming back in that game.
Right.
Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that were all about the Celtics, and then that late game change was enough to say, hey, the improbable sometimes happens. And if there was EV on Atlanta coming back and I made that bet, well, then that's a situation where I manifested it. But if I didn't, it's okay. I'll get it sometime down the line. And in the long run, that EV, expected value, is going to converge with AV, actual value. And that's exactly how it works for any professional sports bettor.
I mean, it's hard to stay the course, right? Because just standard variance will tell you, some days you're going to lose a lot more than you win, right? So for people who are watching this and saying, I'm just sort of getting into positive EV betting, I'm just sort of finding it, I'm figuring it out, I'm sort of sitting on the various pages that tell you where to find it. For someone who goes, I don't know, 0 for 7 or something like that, and I'm not saying me personally, but I went 0 for 7 last night. Let's say for those of us who have that, even though we did have plus EV bets, again, this is, not me, somebody else watching. What would you say to that person that's not me to keep going and to not give up?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly all about, what do you want from sports betting? Do you want the instant gratification of always winning? You picked the wrong hobby, because there's going to be days you lose. There's going to be, I always like to give the example of, if we had a national coin flipping contest where everybody squared off 1-to-1 flipping coins, somebody would run perfect through the entire contest just based on, one side heads, one side tails, and they get advance on. Do they have some kind of coin flipping prognostication? No, it was just 50-50, and they were on the right side of probability this time, all the way through to the end. It's the same way with sports betting. You just have to trust that you have that edge, and you'll continue to have that edge even when the results don't quite bear out. Hey, we've got 2 men on for Kansas City in the top of the first here.
Okay, let's pop back over here. So we're still in the under 8.5, top of the first here.
As I mentioned to you earlier, the greatest chance of having a run scored is in the first inning in most Major League Baseball games. I'm actually kind of rooting to have a run scored in the first inning of this game, because I'd love to basically double down on my position and take more under. But we're first and third, I believe, with 1 out. So got a good chance here of getting an early run from Kansas City.
So we had this conversation last summer, too, when the Nerfy interest exploded. And so much of it was on the no, right? And I remember we talked at a conference and you said, actually, statistically, there's like a 52% chance that you are going to score a run in the first inning. How much of that data do you think bookmakers already know and they're pricing it into the odds? And now you've taken a concept of, well, I'm going no, and then they bake in the odds, but you stick with that concept, even though mathematically it doesn't work, right? It seems like the public is so, hey, we're on the Nerfies. We're there. We're on it.
Excuse me. Yeah. Look, algorithmically, if you were to take a baseball game and you were to say, okay, there's 9 innings, let's divide the total by 9, that's the number of runs that'll be scored in the first inning, you would lose your shirt, because that's not how this is done. At the beginning of a game in the first inning, you have the top of both lineups which are the best hitters on both teams. And you have pitchers that, for whatever reason, sometimes don't get into the groove in
They're
the first
human.
inning.
They're human. It happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes a little while for a pitcher to get the control.
Tigers double. Here we go, baby.
Go.
Here we go. Sorry, I digress.
Well, that's good because over on the Arizona game, there's a double play coming up according to the live odds.
Yeah, you're up $3 there. Up $3. I know you wanted a run so you could buy low and sell high, but you are still up regardless, sir.
Yes, I am. But
yeah.
I wanted to get more action down because this is the point I'm making here with this, Dan. The probability of a run scored in the first inning is different than just the linear probability across all 9 innings. There is, in fact, the most runs are scored in a Major League Baseball game in the first inning, and then the 6th inning. And think about that. There's 2 reasons for that. Obviously the pitcher is going to be more tired in the 6th inning. That's a reason. But then there's also the top of those lineups coming up to bat in the first inning is huge.
I'd have to look at the any sort of split to see how that's going on this year, and frankly, I haven't, if I'm being honest. But I'll tell you, we are planning on adding some of that to our repertoire, hopefully by summer. A whole bunch of different MLB props that you'll be able to trade on Sport Trade. Tigers, as I mentioned, with a double, so there's a runner on first there. The Royals and Diamondbacks looks like we're going to the bottom half. So you're up $3 there. Let's take a look and see, other than soccer, if there's anything else live right now. Tigers and Brewers, a lot of EPL. Do you have any EPL plays for us? Should we go to unabated? Going to add any EPL coming up here?
We don't have any soccer, much to Tom Piola's dismay. We don't have any soccer yet.
So
we're
going
to be adding some more sports soon.
So I have to get your opinion on this because Tommy and I are right now in a blood battle.
No.
We are not on speaking terms. We're like the Capulets and the Montagues minus the making out about what happened at Battle Bets, which was NBA shot clock rules. Now, hey, I'll say this. I have not said this publicly, but I will say this. If you watch the Battle Bets between Tommy and myself, I was winning when the clock struck 0. By the time the 0 had dissipated, Tommy was winning. We've never had this happen before. Not
right.
once. I contend NBA shot clock rules. When it hits 0, the buzzer goes off, and that's the score. The ball's not out of your hand, that's the score. Now, I am man enough to say right here for the first time, I'm going to give Tommy that victory because I'm a great guy. But we are going to battle again.
You should.
We will.
Look, I watched the replay multiple times because I was curious as well.
Yeah.
There was a key strategy mistake that was made
by me.
By Tom.
Okay. Well, I made several, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, you both made several. And I don't want to tip my hand because eventually I'm going to come on Battle Bets.
Yes.
I'm going to crush you, Dan.
We got to get you and Rufus battling each other.
Let's do that.
If we ever find Rufus, we'll get we'll get him on. No, I replayed the last 5 minutes of that Battle Bets in my dreams for 2 weeks straight. A lot of mistakes were made. Again, I'm not going to recount them because if Tommy's watching, I don't want him figuring out what I'm thinking here. And I don't think he's. Let's see. Is he? Husky Park says the best of the best on the live stream right now. Thank you so much. We love you, Eddie. Come hang out. Eddie's the man. Okay. We are 2 outs now. Brewers again 5-2 against the Detroit Tigers. There's a runner on second. 2 out here in the top half of the 8th inning. Kerry Carpenter up. He's 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. So not anticipating a whole lot there. And if I go to Sport Trade, I mentioned the quickness, the speed of our game state data. I'm now down $4. So I'm going to go ahead and assume.
You know what's going to happen now.
He rolls over to second. So that'll end the inning. Okay, great. So here's a scenario. Would you recommend just getting out of this trade, or because I only put in $10, let's just see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you probably don't have, it's $10. So you can kind of hang your hope on some kind of 9th inning miracle. But again, it's the end of that lineup coming up now in the 9th inning. There could be some pinch hitters. I don't know who played and who sat for Detroit today, but That's a possibility.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, I would let it roll and then see if you can kind of get back to something profitable and get out of it in the
So
ninth.
here's always the interesting thing here too, right? Is only on Sport Trade could I buy another share for $3 and basically cut my
And
average
lower your
cost by a quarter,
right, lower
right?
your risk
And then if
overall.
anything happens positive for the Tigers, let's say the Tigers go 1, 2, 3 here, that might creep up another 50 cents. If they get a guy on base to start the ninth, that could go up another $2. And then, we're eking out $2 of profit, but it is profit nonetheless. For the sake of this exercise, why don't we do that? Here, I'll buy two more. So that's $6, and I have 4 shares at an average cost of $4. So $16 total. I could sell it back for 2, and I've got $4 as my average cost. So we're right on the precipice here. We'll go back to the game I know you wanted to focus on. You're up another 50 cents. The under 8.5 between the Royals and the Diamondbacks, which is selling at a full share, $59 per share, minus 147 in American odds. 1 out, 2-1 count here in the bottom of the first for Arizona. I assume we're still hoping the Diamondbacks get a run across.
That was my goal is hopefully get a run out of the Diamondbacks. One other thing about these two pitchers is they are susceptible to the long ball. Both of them are. They're mainly fly ball pitchers. Now, if Arizona had the roof open today, I would have had a different approach to this. But we're counting on the ball not flying quite as far in Arizona today because of that.
The air condition is just a killer.
It really is.
Yeah.
It beyond the temperature, it takes some moisture out of the air as well. And not to get too complex here, but
no, please.
When you take moisture out of the air, you replace nitrogen. You replace hydrogen with nitrogen, and from your chemistry classes in high school, nitrogen has a higher atomic number than hydrogen, which means it's heavier, which means it's more friction to the ball flight. So yeah, it's science.
There you go, kids. That was great. Thank you. I will say, just in wrapping up our positive EV bet conversation from about 10 minutes ago, do you remember the first time the Sport Trade launch party, Rams Bills, to start the season in Hoboken? You and I had a conversation, and you said to me, I don't think I remember who the Bills starting quarterback is. Do you remember this conversation?
Yes, I do.
We
right.
do.
And I didn't remember.
So and this is what I think is so perfect, right? So in many ways, I want to chart my experience through all of this at Sport Trade, which is coming in to the betting industry as a reporter, not really a bettor, the casual of casualists, the squarest of the squares, to now in a place where I understand a good majority of things going on. I would never consider myself a sharp because I'm not. But I think tracking that progression is really interesting. And I remember this conversation because it was really like a fork in the road moment for me personally. Because we were talking and you were like, I don't even think I know who their quarterback is. And I said, how in the hell could that possibly be true? How could that be real? And you were explaining to me, because I only bet the price of a bet and I don't necessarily dive into the minutia of NFL matchup on matchup. And I said, how could you possibly do that? That to me just broke my brain. It made absolutely zero sense. I imagine, Jack, that you run into that conversation all the time.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I said this on a podcast, and I saw people make fun of it earlier this year. College basketball. I had my best college basketball season of all time. I can't name you one college basketball player.
Wow.
I don't like. If you gave me 5 teams and said 4 of these teams are in the top 25, pick the one that's not. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But I know numbers, and I know when a sports book is not pricing something correctly. And you don't need to know the ins and outs of the actual players and the game, as long as you know there's inefficiency there in the market. Oh, a Brewers home run.
I saw it.
Anyway, yeah. So, look, it's not like I'm sitting in a cave and I don't know what's going on in the world and I'm just betting numbers on a screen. Like I keep up with sports. It's just certain sports are more interesting to me than others. And
You're a
Baseball,
baseball guy. Yeah, you're a
yeah,
baseball guy.
baseball's more interesting.
Yeah.
The NBA used to be interesting to me. It wasn't so much this year, probably because I was doing more college basketball betting. I just didn't get into the NBA as much. But baseball is probably the sport that I'm like, okay, I can kind of, look at the matchups here a little bit more because it makes more of a difference in baseball than with football. Really, it's only the quarterback that matters. And yes, I do know Josh Allen now. It was just the first game of the season. Wasn't in football brain. Um, but yeah, it's the quarterback's the only position that matters in football. So I don't need to know offensive tackles and running backs and wide receivers. As long as I know the health of the quarterback, that's a big key to understanding what's going to go happen in the game.
That's so interesting. So, I mean, and yes, I think people who even the casualist of casual bettors can look at the difference between Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield and say, obviously, one's better than the other. Baker Mayfield's a quarterback. And that was a joke. So, I guess, so when you are looking at the prices, right? And I assume this just comes with time in the chair, as they call it in TV, right? Just experience, being able to immediately identify what's mispriced, what is priced accurately. How do you get to that point where you can say, okay, I obviously know that this is a better number than that?
Well, it's largely market makers, right? It's largely trying to figure out who has the opinion the sharpest, the quickest. And in different sports, there's different market makers. It's one of the things when we developed the unabated line for unabated, we wanted to kind of bring about a sharp line that was based on the key market makers for that individual sport, and then based on a little bit more of like how the market dynamics move. A line move at 11 p.m. for next day's games is different than a line move at 10 a.m. and is different than a line move an hour before the game starts. There's different dynamics at play in each of those, and you kind of need to know the market to know that. It's one of the reasons why we have so few sports on unabated, because we wanted to play to our strengths. We wanted to make sure that this information is strong. We don't have as much domain knowledge in soccer, and so we had to put that off for later. So yeah, it's just basically kind of knowing the market makers. An interesting thing about Sport Trade is I've been watching the maturity of the sport trade market. It's getting more efficient. Early days, it was very easy to pick off 3 to 6% edges all day long on sport trade. You guys didn't mind. It's not your money. It's the market maker's money.
Right.
But it was easy to find it. Now it's getting less and less. Now, is that because there's more vultures kind of swooping in and grabbing them before me? Maybe. I kind of feel like it's your market maker is learning as they go and they're getting sharper. I've seen some times where the market maker is ahead of like Pinnacle, which is kind of a renowned offshore book that everyone holds on high ground as being this super sharp book. And Sport Trade's been sharper than them. So, yeah. Hey, so in this Arizona game, we got heading to the second inning now. So one of the things I would look at between innings, even though we're already past between innings, is who's going to come up to bat in that next half inning, which in this case is starting off with Isbell, who is the number 6 hitter with Kansas City, and who is going to be, how many pitches has the pitcher thrown, which in this case, Zach Allen's barely broke a sweat, so he's fine.
Right.
This is definitely a position where I'm thinking under and nothing else. Now, if we get a bloop run here, if, a fly ball that gets out away from Gallen and we get a home run, again, I'd be looking to bet some under. But right now, this under is going to keep on dropping lower and lower because it's the waste of the lineups for both teams, and these pitchers are still fairly fresh.
So it looks like, yeah, I'm sorry. It looks like Isbell has struck out. So you've picked up another $1.50 there.
Yeah. I'm kind of, I wish I had more position on it. I was hoping to get more position in the first inning.
But do you consider this the value is gone now? Now you're just kind of you're sitting with it.
I would say the value is gone right now. There's nothing going on in this game now. As we get into later innings, I'm not sure if we'll still be on the air for this, but as we get into later innings, you need to start looking at pitcher fatigue. That's big. You need to look at where in the lineup they are coming into each inning for the pinch hitting that I mentioned before. There are some players in this game that are not regular players, so there's a good chance we get some pinch hitting later in the game. I focus mainly on totals in my mind. That's always I'm focusing on totals. But if you wanted to play a side one to the other, this is obviously a game where Arizona is the prohibitive favorite in the
Mhm.
game. It's currently what about
72.5 to 29. So minus
yeah.
269 for the Diamondbacks, plus 240 for the Royals.
So this is a situation where if we were to get a bloop run from Kansas City, think about betting Arizona. You know, it's almost like there's Warren Buffett would have been a good sports bettor because he always says, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy.
Mm.
And that's kind of how sports betting, especially live betting, you're going to find the value being contrarian. A run just scores for this team. Think about betting the other team.
Yeah, especially when the other one is such a prohibitive favorite, you're saying.
Right. In other words, we'll get a dip in the odds. Now, the odds are commensurate with where they should be.
Mm.
It's just that there's more of a practical value in betting something like Arizona. You're getting a dip in the price, and it's because they'd be down a run. It's not because the market is wrong, but it's at least a chance for you to kind of jump in on some value. It's not as if that value is positive EV in a major way. It's just that's the position where you can kind of jump in on it.
So how can you identify positive EV without looking, let's say you're in a situation where you're just looking at Sport Trade. You don't have an opportunity to look at every book, right, to determine pricing everywhere. How can you determine, tell me and tell our audience almost immediately, how you know that you're getting positive EV?
So if you can, go ahead and pull up the unabated odds screen. And click on the live tab up at the top there. Yep. And give yourself an F5, just because sometimes this screen needs to refresh. So just
sure.
Reload this screen if you don't mind. Okay, now go back to that live tab one more time. Okay, so now we have the two games that are going on right now.
Yep.
Okay, so what you can do in our odds screen is you can kind of compare it to the rest of the market. Now, I just got done telling you that I think Sport Trade is getting sharper and sharper in their market making. But we can look at this and we can say, oh, okay, Sport Trade has 7.5 under minus 150, and Pinnacle has under 7 minus 108. You got DraftKings and FanDuel there as well. We also have Deck Prism, which you see you don't have on your screen here, but they're
there we go. We got it right
betting
here.
Specialist. You can drag them over if you want to get them on the screen. And they're a good way to kind of judge the market. And what we have also to kind of add to this is, so we're in the middle of the second here, which is a good time for this example. Over on the right side, and it's not in your screen, but we have a live derivatives calculator in which you can figure out the pricing of different numbers. So right now you have, there you go. If you want to, it's going to take up most of your screen.
That's all right.
But if we were to click on, let's say, Pinnacle, and it's kind of off your screen here, but if you could,
there we go.
There we
the
go.
over or under?
It doesn't matter. Click on the over or the under.
Okay.
And now it's going to tell us, okay, put in the game state. So we're going to put in 0-0 mid-second. And the Pinnacle line did move, but we're going to go with what we got here.
Sure.
So in a second, it's going to return here. These are the fair prices for all of these different half-run iterations. So if Sport Trade is currently 7.5, this is, by the way, this is for the over. Mm-hmm. So what Unabated is saying is the fair price for over 7.5 is plus 140. And as you'll notice, Sport Trade is perfectly aligned there. They have plus 130 for the over. And I'm sorry, I'm talking in U.S. odds, but
that's okay.
And they have minus 150 for the under, which the fair price would be minus 140. So they're not offering any value right now. But if you were to say, okay, my source of truth is Pinnacle, and I want to compare the Sport Trade line to Pinnacle's line, but compare it between runs, that's how you would do it.
I see. Okay. Another great tool from Unabated.
It really is. It's a tool that, like, you can use throughout a game. It's tough to bet more than one game live. It's really tough to kind of be focusing on all these other games. But this is a tool that kind of helps you normalize the market. And there are sports books out there that don't price lines correctly through different total points. In other like 6, 7.5, 8, 8.5. They offer alternate lines, but they don't price them quite correctly, and you can find some value that way.
I mean, but you have to be really quick too, right?
Well, and so that's
for the
why I
most
always
part.
tell people, bet it in the half inning, bet it in the mid or
Right.
the end of an inning, because too much is going on in baseball as each pitch.
Let's see. The Royals Diamondbacks is the final game of the afternoon. The game has moved so fast. I thought we were gonna have a bunch of games to go through. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 finals already.
Yeah.
The Brewers wrapped up a 6-2 win after a home run in the top of the ninth there. So the only game active right now, Royals and Diamondbacks, and of course I don't have it on my television, but I can at least game cast it, even though it's a lot slower than our feed. So the under right now, up $14.50. Now you said you typically will live in the totals markets for baseball specifically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just it's more second nature to me as I'm watching a game to be thinking about the total.
So, but you don't model, if I'm correct.
I used to.
Okay.
I don't anymore. I actually, funny thing is earlier today I was trying to get my model back into running shape here to project out things, and man, my code is just too old. 2009, everything's dated 2019 in that code, because that's the last time that I really bet baseball every day for the entire season. So there was no way I could update everything. Pages no longer exist on the internet. And so, yeah, I kind of tried to piece it together longhand. So that's why I kind of came up with some of the angles on this game. But my model used to kind of spit it all out for me, and then spit it out for every game on the slate, so that I could kind of just go through game by game.
So one of our biggest lifts here, and it's not a surprise to anyone because you have this same educational hurdle, is price shopping, right? Like understanding that if you don't price shop, you're kind of SOL. If you do, if you're always finding the best price, you're going to win more when you win. You're going to lose less when you lose. I find I talk to a lot of people in my age group, right, who are interested in sports betting or whatever, and they don't care. And that's like a very difficult thing to like bridge the gap for, right? Because if you're buying a television, you don't like walk into Target and say, "Give me that one." Well, it's $1,000. Well, the Walmart has it for $750. Well, I don't care. Just give it to me.
Right.
So I can't understand now that I'm in the business. I understand I'm doing all these things. Why you wouldn't want to do that? And for whatever reason, and maybe it's the bar stoolification of everything in sports betting, where it's just more about like placing a goat whale regardless of price. So like, as you guys are also trying to educate, I mean, obviously we're aligned in the educational stuff. Like, do you guys see any of that pushback too? I know it's your clientele is different, but like, what sort of pushback do you see with that?
Yeah, we thought from the beginning with Unabated, we would have this flood of people that were new to sports betting or had gotten involved with sports betting and would want to lose less or want to figure out why they're losing so much. And so we had a lot of basic content, and we found that the fly that we're attracting with our flame is largely the better that wants to get the edge. It's not so much even they want to lose less. They have an edge to their betting. And that's great. I mean, that's been very profitable for a lot of people. But I would love to have a bigger funnel. I would love to be able to kind of say, hey, here's why you're losing, man. And if you just do 3 simple things, you would have a much better chance. And number one of those 3 simple things is always going to be line shopping. Line shopping is the single sharpest thing you can do as a bettor, period.
That's why they call me the dagger. Well, to be fair, nobody calls me that, but you called it once and I'm running with it, but I digress. Number 2. So number 1 is price shopping. What's number 2?
Number 2 is, and this is sort of related to number 1, is having more outs. In other words, open up the accounts at all the books you have access to. If you're in a state that doesn't have a lot of sports books, open up accounts where you can, offshore, wherever it may be. I'd rather see people play at regulated books. It's so much easier when they have a complaint or they have a problem to go to the regulator and get it solved right away. But yeah, open up as many accounts as you can, because that's going to facilitate your line shopping.
You said there was a third.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to prompt me for it. The third is you don't have to bet.
Yeah.
In other words, so in the bettor versus the sports book, the sports book has an edge because they can offer everything with VIG, 11 to win 10, or in Sport Trade's case, like minus 102 to win 100, right? And the bettor has the option of not betting everything. The sports book, though, they have to offer everything, and it's up to the bettor that they can choose what they want to bet on. Well, when you have a sports book that has that much surface area to defend, you can often find a good bet somewhere, but you don't have to bet. You know, if you look at something and you don't see an edge, or you don't see something that you're comfortable betting, don't bet. It's as simple as that. You don't have to have action. You don't have to make this $5 parlay that's impossible to hit because you dream that Darren Rovell will retweet you someday down the line. You know, you don't have to, okay? You know, just enjoy the sport rather than have to feel like you need a lottery ticket watching anything you do.
Yeah, and you know, so much of that, and this is a pretty meta conversation right now, but so much of the promotional aspects of everything is the lottery ticket kind of stuff, and it is celebrated and it is irresponsible, and that's kind of what we attempt to steer clear of, at least with what we do. And look, we've shifted a little bit as well, right? Like, we're finding that people who love Sport Trade are people who are value seekers, people who do the price shopping and then realize we're not charging as heavy as a VIG. And then we do offer the opportunity to get out if you want it, but a lot of people are sort of set in their ways and they don't want to. But it's sort of a choose your own adventure, right? It's the trading is there if you want it to be, but if you don't want to, at least you're getting better prices, right? And that's kind of where we've landed for the most part. It is tough. I mean, it's tough to find people in my age group who care enough to sit and look at 5-10 different sports books to figure out which one is the best. My hope, though, is the further we get away from PASPA, the more this is out in the open, like any other newer market, people become more educated. People realize how much they're getting ripped off. People don't like getting ripped off, A. And B, once they realize it, if they still want to bet on sports, they'll seek out better ways of doing it. It's just a matter of, you know, how do we get them across that goal line? That's one of the tougher aspects, in my opinion. Right.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, that was the meta hour. Thanks so much. In any event, so you're up 1350 here on your under 8.5 bet. I mean, our conversations are completely different than they were a year and a half ago when you were in studio, and I'm asking you like, so what's the weather like? Stuff like that.
All right,
again,
I got to play. I'm going to do a play here.
All right, let's see. What do you got?
Arizona minus 1.5. Jackie Bradley Jr. just doubled or singled? Singled.
Okay.
So they got the leadoff batter up on first for Kansas City.
All right.
I think there's an opportunity here to buy a little Arizona minus 1.5.
Plus 125.
Right.
Yep.
And I ran the MLB calculator and it came back 123 as the fair price. So we got a little bit of value there. I'm going to take a couple shares of that just to.
All right. A couple shares. I'll put you down for 5 shares.
Okay.
So that's what I have you on here. I know you're doing your own thing there, but for the people, we've got 5 shares at an average cost of 44.5, so plus 122. And you said you ran that on the unabated calculator. Let's see if I can fix my screen.
Yeah, so you would have to select a source of truth first, so you could use Pinnacle there. But you got to go to the spread. There you go.
Yeah.
And of course, it's probably moved a little bit by now, but
yeah.
Go ahead and select Pinnacle as your source of truth.
Yep. Let's see. It's 0. We are in top 3, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the top 3. I would run it for the end of 2, though, just because
you're
not quite to the mid. And now that we have a runner on base, it kind of throws it off a little bit.
But... Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I see 135 for a fair price of minus 1.5.
Yeah, so it did drop a little. He's got 0-2 count on Bobby Witt Jr.
It looks like he struck out. Yeah.
Yeah. So got a little bit of value there. It'll continue to develop. But
All right.
honestly, in this situation, like Arizona being the home team, if they get a 1-run lead, they're not going to bat in the bottom of the ninth. So you have to kind of keep that in. Sorry, I've been leaning this
That's
way.
okay. That's all right.
You have to take that into consideration of like if this became a 1-run game, you lose 3 at bats at the end of the game. So
I want to make sure. So you grabbed Arizona minus 1.5.
mm-hmm.
Kansas City's up to bat though.
Yes. So
right.
in other words,
all right. Yeah. Sorry. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
I was banking on Gallen would get out of this man on first situation.
Yep. Okay. And that is, at least in this example, proving you're up $10 already. Gallen 4 strikeouts in 2 1/3 right now.
Yeah, he's doing his usual dealing.
Yep. And Pasquantino just lined out. So if he's able to get out of this this jam, even more money to be made.
Yes. And of course, the total continues to look pretty strong.
Yeah.
Now, okay, here's the thing about the total. So the current total you'd find across the board on unabated as well as on Sport Trade, the one that's closest to the median is 6 to 6.5. Here's the thing, Dan. When you have a total that's an even number, you lose if the game goes 3-3, right? If you're betting an under 6.5, the game's not going to end 3-3. It's going to go, extra innings or whatever. So you have to always be cognizant of that you have to, if you're betting unders, you want to look for the odd numbers because then you win in the case of like under 7.5, a 4-3 game. Whereas under 6.5, you lose on 3-3. And so I don't think we're going to get 7.5 up here without like a home run being hit right about now. It's only going to continue to drop, but we may want to consider under 5.5.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll still be on the air, but like I'm okay passing on 6 and waiting for 5.5.
Ooh.
It sounds counterintuitive, but
yeah,
we gain a little in terms of the edge cases.
Yeah, so not up yet, but it's possible that might get added to the fold here. But I mean, you're under 8.5 now, up $20 per share. Again, we got it at 53.5 minus 117. Now up to 76 to buy and 73.5 to sell. So $20 per share there. And it looks like he got out of that inning. So that explains the $10 bump. So well played, sir. There you go.
Thank you.
Leadoff double made you $20 on the other end.
I mean, betting unders on games in the afternoon can be a little bit boring, I admit. Like we're sitting here and nothing's going on in this game, but it's money, right?
Hey, we're learning a lot, though. That's all that matters. If you're still watching, we appreciate it. Again, hashtag Betters Unlimited. Do that, and then we're also, I think, going to have potentially something to announce here between Unabated and Sport Trade down the line. So we'll keep our hats on for that one and let you know a little later. But for the time being, join the club. Betters Unlimited. Secret password. So don't ask me about it. I can't tell you. But enter Unlimit when you sign up and get that week of free commission or commission-free betting, excuse me. I was thrown off because I heard a bunch of cheering. I looked up, and the game that I had the Brewers on, but that's since timed out on ESPN Plus. So now there's Barcelona and Rayo playing, and somebody scored a goal, and people started yelling, and I was like, "What is going on above my head?" Again, not a lot of EPL. Go ahead.
I'm going to make another bet here.
Yeah.
Under 7.5. No, it just moved. I was going to go under 7.5 minus. Basically at like 68, but it moved.
Yeah, it's at 69 now. I have it. Yeah,
Okay,
and that's enough. That's enough to deter you.
Yeah, I ran it through the unabated calculator, and it came back at plus 220, or minus 220, and that's minus 230 now.
Yeah.
In U.S. odds speak. So yeah, I think we'll get a play on the 5.5 if Sport Trade puts up that market, that strike price.
Okay. I can let them know. Do you want me to? Do you want me to let the powers that be make them aware?
A direct line.
Yeah, I've got their ear. I'm sure they'd love to hear from me.
But yeah, I think this game's definitely going to be a play on the 5.5 by the end of this inning. So in this game, we have Alec Thomas up to bat. He's the number 8 hitter. So we're going to turn the lineup over in this half inning. And we're going to have the top of the Arizona lineup, and we're going to have, I believe, the 3 hitter for the Royals. No, the 4 hitter for the Royals. But man, the Royals lineup is just weak today.
Yeah, it's bad.
Really weak.
I considered, just for for the purpose of showing it, buying the Royals, but I'm looking at it. Evan Longoria is hitting 5th. It's 2023. Gurriel is hitting 3rd. This is just a trash lineup. I can't even bring myself to do it.
No. It's really Arizona or the under or both in this game.
Yeah.
Here's my strategy, and we might be off the air by the time this strategy hits.
Yeah, I think we'll do this, and then we can wrap up a bit. You're up $38 in our scenario here.
So here's what I would do. We're at the bottom of the 3rd. Top of the 3rd is going to be a fairly weak part of the Kansas City lineup. If we get through the top of the 3rd here, and actually I kind of hope for Arizona to get a man or two on, but not score, and we get to the middle of the next there at the end of this inning, I will look to play the under 5.5 if that's available. Otherwise, I would look to play, an equivalent alternate line of like 7.5 or whatever, because I really feel like this game is just going to be a snooze fest the rest of the afternoon.
Missed opportunity to get more down, I suppose, at least in our scenario. But it looks like you're sitting on a winner. So in that regard, congratulations. Captain Jack, thank you so much for joining us. I always appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy man. If you haven't already, checked out Unabated and their amazing tools. If you've never seen it before, I am always using it, and I am always tweeting about it as well.
We appreciate that.
No, hey, and I appreciate the access to it as well, because despite the fact that maybe some of our viewers went 0-7 last night, this conversation encouraged me to get back on the horse, and I'm going to use Unabated to do it. So,
look, your Pittsburgh -1.5 was a good bet. You know.
Thank
that.
you. I do know that, and on Sport Trade, I did make $50 on per share on it, so it was a good bet. And the bullpen screwed me. That's okay. But on Sport Trade, that was a good bet. The cavalry comes out and says you're a witch, but that's okay. They don't have Sport Trade. Download the app, and you too can make $50 per share. We'll keep trying to find those bets. Captain Jack, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Good luck with the rest of your bets this afternoon.
Thank you.